Welcome to Politics Done Right on KPFT. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Give me a call at 713-526-5738. That is 713-526-KPFT. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. It is a pleasure to have you guys with me one more hour on a wonderful day. Today in Houston, it's pretty darn hot. And with the guest that we have today talking some issues, I hope that you will enjoy it, and it will be very, very, very hot. Please, folks, do remember that this is a call-in show. The telephone number is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-KPFT. Let's make it a lively show. I have a pretty long blog of the week that I'm going to read. So let me go ahead and tell you a few things. It is that time again, our 2-year presidential marathon. So I guess we're going to get
weekly blog post.
Okay, folks, here is the weekly blog post. We kind of got to this blog post early because I made it a bit long, but it's important. Here we go. As an engineer, I'm well aware that large gradients can be conducive to disastrous events. President Obama came into office with a hope of turning the juggernaut that is the United States by continually nudging it. For those who were not mesmerized by his rhetoric but listened to his words throughout the election and subsequently, it was evident his intent was never to use a cleaver but a scalpel. He was not going to plant a tree but plant a seed. Electing a black man named Barack Hussein Obama was a large enough gradient that he had no control over but would have to mitigate. It is a formidable task to nudge the juggernaut leftward where there is both an uncompromising, obstructive right-wing Republican Party and a sect of the Democratic Party beholden to the plutocracy and a populace that does not feel empowered to lead change. Well, the president has done his part, sans TPP, of course, and other minor missteps, and a few major ones. Going forward, it is time to ensure that cleaver is used against the plutocracy and that it is time to ensure the planted seed is fertilized and grows. The next president must be someone who will be unabashedly or who will effect unabashedly liberal policies, progressive policies. There's a bit of a typo in my blog post. Over the last 35 plus years, the American middle class has been faltering. Why? Because we have been conducting the failed experiment of trickle-down economics. Sometimes it takes someone to reiterate a truth every liberal knows, but that continues to be bastardized by not only right-wing media, but implicitly by all mainstream media. Democratic strategist David Goodfriend provided an excellent rant a few years ago that still holds true today. And here goes the rant. Very impressed with the rant. Here it goes. Conservative Republicans claim that their philosophy of cutting taxes and gun regulations is good for business and the economy. And even some Democrats fall into the trap repeating these falsehoods. When they want to look pro-business, they point to all the tax cuts they support. Makes no sense, but that's what they do. The truth, however, is that progressivism is great for economic growth, and business leaders know it. The values and fair competition, good wages, and government as a tool for getting important things done, in fact, promotes economic growth better than conservatives will admit. For example, conservatives claim that all regulations harm business. That, of course, depends on which business you're talking about. The satellite TV industry never would have taken off without a long written by Democrats Al Gore and Ed Markey. The law required cable companies that own channels to sell access to these channels to new competitors like satellite TV, satellite network, etc. Republicans fought it, but the results speak for themselves. Conservatives claim that the minimum wage and other worker protections raise costs and harm business, but Walmart, the largest retailer, has repeatedly called for an increase in the minimum wage. Why? So that Walmart customers who often earn minimum wage can afford to buy more. You can see this store, that rant was a bit dated because we know for a while Walmart had a change of heart, but seems like their heart kind of came back in a bit. But I continue his rant. Conservatives claim that government programs are a drain on business, and that what we need is to cut taxes and spending to free up businesses to grow. But pharmaceutical companies have stepped in repeatedly to oppose cuts. The National Institute of Health, and this year even Newt Gingrich opposed House Republicans' plans to cut the NIH funding. Big Pharma generally does not do basic scientific research. They look for the government, NIH, to do that so that pharma can take those discoveries and turn them into new medical treatments and make money, which of course creates jobs and growth. Before I continue, folks, translators from voice to words can be sometimes a bit difficult. Now, stock market trends support the progressive growth effect. Bill Clinton raised taxes to balance a budget, but he also helped to usher in new competition in markets from telecommunications to energy. On the other hand, George W. Bush cut taxes, deregulated financial markets, and much of the economy. And what was the result? Well, Clinton presided over the longest economic expansion in American history with a budget surplus over 22 million jobs created. President Bush, on the other hand, bloated the deficit and left office with the worst recession in post-war history. So, do the math. Progressivism is the most pro-growth philosophy around. Now, if we can get Republicans to change their tune, but I do wish that Democrats would stop trying to imitate conservatives on economic issues. They instead should promote pro-growth progressivism. And I leave his rant, during the 2014 presidential elections, it is imperative that the sentiment articulated by good friend is reflected in the policies of the winning candidate. More importantly, it is imperative that the new president understands that the middle class theft that occurred over the last 35 years, the theft that caused the income inequality and wealth disparity, that is owed. It must not be paid for on the backs of those who rightfully earned said unrealized wealth and income. Folks, the telephone number is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Today we have a special guest. Our guest has a great resume. Patrick O'Hefferman, chairman of the Netroots Foundation, is co-host of the national syndicated radio program Music Friday Live, and a music reviewer for a number of online organizations. What's that?
I'll have to get him again.
Excellent. Now, and the music reviewer for a number of online publications, including The Holiday Progressive, formerly a political science professor at Georgia Tech and host of the syndicated program Fairness Radio and Uplinks on NPR's Saturday All Things Considered. He holds a PhD from MIT and has earned an Emmy and a Webby-Honors, among other awards. He has published 5 books and a project he co-launched. The North Asia Nuclear Free Zone was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize in 2005. He ran Eugene McCarthy's primary campaign in Northern California and served as a staff consultant to Governor Jerry Brown in his first term. Patrick also ghost wrote Representative Ron Dellums' book, Defense Sense, United States Defense Needs and the Military Budget, and Mayor Cisneros' book, The Entrepreneurial City. So, folks, we are going to have El Señor Patrick Upperman right now. Is he on? Patrick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and boy, when you read all those things, you reminded me of how old I am. But the O'Heffernan clan goes back a ways, so I guess it's okay.
First of all, the definition of old is no longer what it used to be. In fact, in the green room, I was speaking to the general manager, and we were talking about age. And, you know, what's old these days is 100 years old. So
I know.
If you're nowhere there, sir, you are not old.
Well, thank you. That's the best thing anybody said to me all day.
Well, great. I'm glad to hear that. But before we get into the guts of what we're going to be talking about,
sure.
Right? Let's go ahead. I want to ask you to tell folks a little bit of the Netroots Nation Foundation, its genesis, what it's all about. I think it's important because a lot of progressives, a lot of liberals out there they hear about all these other groups around the country, but rarely do they get the kind of messages, the kind of information from groups like yours. So why don't you first give us the groundwork?
Well, Netroots Nation is the largest convening of progressive organizations in the country. We are essentially the convention of the professional left. All right. We started off 10 years ago as a gathering of liberal bloggers. And that was in Las Vegas. There were about, 1,300 of us there. And it was kind of a loose gathering, but it turned out to be very important. All the newspapers were there, the New York Times. I remember sitting on the steps with Maureen Dowd and watching the proceedings in the aisle, and she said, "Who are all these people sitting on the floor with their computers plugged into the wall?" And I said, "Maureen, those are the people who are going to take your job." Well, they didn't, but the result of that is we now gather every year in a different city. We bring together 60, 70, 100, I'm not sure how many these days, organizations and candidates, elected officials, media, etc., from the left, and we have 3 days of panels, caucuses, workshops, and this year we're also going to introduce music. We're going to have 2 days worth of workshops and panels and also singing on how music can be reintegrated into the progressive movement. So it's the largest convention of progressives in the country. It also has some of the largest and best parties of progressives in
No
the country.
kidding. I can attest to that.
That's right. You've been there, haven't you? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
This year it's going to be in Phoenix. And no, we are not crazy to be going to Phoenix in July. It's July 17th. That's what air conditioning was invented for. We're going to focus on immigration, and we'll be in the convention center, the Phoenix Convention Center, which is 4 blocks from Sheriff Arpaio's office. Obviously, we'll be doing lots of other things. But I really recommend all your listeners, if they've never been to Netroots Nation, this is where you go to get re-energized, to make connections, sometimes find jobs, learn things you've never learned, and also support the entire progressive movement across the country. It is the main event for progressives in the United States, and now worldwide too. We get people from other countries too.
Well, I was watching all watching the DFA scholarships and all these other things that were going out there, and watching the kind of folks that are actually. Well, before I continue with that, folks, please do remember 713-526-5738, 713-526-5738. Give us a call if you have some questions for Patrick with regards to this great event that will be occurring in Arizona or Phoenix, Arizona, or just about anything political, because we're going to get into some heavy stuff a little bit in a little bit. Go ahead and continue, Patrick.
Well, I can't. Well, there is one other thing I could say. Unlike other conventions, any other conventions I've ever been to, Netroots Nation is created from the bottom up. There isn't, not me, not the staff, nobody at Netroots Nation actually says this is what the agenda is going to be and this is who you're going to listen to. We ask progressives all over the country to tell us what they want to do. And every December, January, we open ourselves up to proposals from hundreds and hundreds, thousands maybe, of progressives around the country for panels and workshops and caucuses, and we have kind of an extensive citizens committee review process where we go through all of these proposals and we whittle them down into the 80 or 90 panels and 40 or so workshops. But our agenda is actually created by the participants, and that's not done anywhere else as far as I know.
Okay, one other thing that we can mention about Netroots Nation, and I can attest to this personally, is that every Democrat, every liberal politician of consequence goes there, and they want to rub shoulders with the bloggers because they know that we bloggers are going to be out there getting these messages out to the grassroots, and so it is a great event. But
absolutely, let me. And I just got an email this morning from the staff that said Elizabeth Warren has confirmed she will be our kickoff speaker.
You jumped the gun. You jumped the gun, Patrick. I got that email this morning, and I said, I'm going to have to ask you a whole lot of questions about that. So let's talk some nuts and bolts. Right. I don't know if you were able to listen to my initial, the initial what I call the blog of the week or not.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was able to listen to some of it in between all the getting me on the air thing.
Okay. The reason I asked that is let's get serious here. We know there's a comedy show on the right now in the process of electing who's going to represent the Republicans. The Democratic side, I am concerned about, and I want to hear your opinion. Right now, as I see it, we have Hillary. By the way, Hillary Clinton is in Houston right now. I was supposed to attend that event, but it happened to coincide with the show. But she's in Houston right now talking about voter ID and that sort of stuff. My question to you, should there be a more invigorating Democratic primary system set up right now?
Well, first of all, I will answer the question, but first of all, let me go back to something you said right at the beginning here, and that is that there's a comedy show being put together on the Republican side.
Right.
It may eventually become a comedy show, but there are some serious people there, and we, on the progressive side, should not underestimate who the opponents are going to be. And I realize that we think a lot of what they say is totally comedic, but there's some fairly serious folks there who know how to put together and run a campaign.
Well, then,
so don't underestimate them.
I don't want you to answer my previous question yet, then, because I want to go. You kind of moved me to a better place, somewhere that I wanted to go previous, but this is better. Let me ask you something.
Okay.
Name me the serious ones that you're considered. I want to see how that flares with some of the stuff that I've written thus far.
Well, I don't want to give any props to any of the Republicans. So I don't want to mention names. Mm-hmm. All I want to say is as progressives look at the field that is shaping up against us, take a look and see how well they raise money, how well they handle campaigns, what their base is, etc. Because there's going to be some serious candidates there. But let me go on to the question you really asked me, mm-hmm. Right? Should there be a more robust debate? Absolutely. Absolutely. Regardless of who anyone thinks is going to be the candidate, and frankly, it's way, way too soon to say who's going to be the candidate, robust debate is what progressives are all about. We get ideas out there. We don't tell people to shut up and follow the rules. We say, we want to hear what you have to say. And that's a big difference between us and the conservatives. And I used to host a radio show like yours, except mm-hmm. I had a right-wing co-host, and we interviewed everybody from the WorldNet Daily and mm-hmm. folks like that, all the way over to Howard Dean. So I heard the whole range of opinions. And something that came up there is that conservatives are much, much less open to debate and diverse voices. They want to get the orders and say this is the way it is. So I think absolutely we need a robust debate. Besides, it'll get everybody excited.
Exactly. I mean, I think that is important because one of the things that helped President Obama win is that he actually expanded the base because he had to bring so many more people into the electorate, and that in effect made him one of the first. I don't know if you realize that, but he's one of the first Democrats in a while to win with over 50% of the vote.
Yes, I did realize that. And I would also point out to a lot of people who are shaking their heads and saying, well, why should we bother? Hillary Clinton's going to do it. The majority of Democratic nominees for president in the past 5 centuries have been the underdogs when they started.
Right.
And the majority of those won.
What are you saying, though, Patrick? I let me tell you, I need to make a little confession here. I wrote a blog both on Daily Kos and on Coffee Party USA where I kind of initially dissed Bernie Sanders. Okay?
Okay.
I did it not because of what he's saying, because I truly believe in his policies, and actually I think he has the better policies. That's a personal opinion. Now, but the left really tore me to shreds. To shreds. Tell me your stance.
I'm not surprised to hear you say that. And, I talked with Bernie at the Progressive Congressional Strategy Session earlier this year, and he can be strident when he really, really gets going. He's got that kind of, he believes he's got so much fire in the belly that sometimes you kind of have to back away just so you don't get burned.
Right.
Now, which is a compliment. It's not a criticism. So when you say, how do I feel about this? You mean, how do I feel about his candidacy?
Yeah, I want to hear the whole picture. I mean, come on, you're the chairman of Netroots Nation. You're the chairman of this big liberal group. I want to hear what you think in the totality of what's going on as far as what Bernie has to offer.
Well, first of all, let me say that I can't speak for Netroots Nation.
I understand that. I do understand that. Yes, I understand that.
This is just me.
Right.
Well, first of all, I like Bernie a lot. Okay, I mean, personally, and I like that kind of fire. One of the problems that the Democratic Party has had in the past 12 years is that conservatives, as we both know, have had this 40-year plan to take over the country, essentially, which they're about to do, or at least they think they are. And the people within that movement are non-compromisers.
Right.
They say, this is what it's going to be, and I don't care what anybody else thinks. I'm sticking by it, even if I have to lose the next election. Democrats, being Democrats who believe in democracy, say, okay, I want to listen to you, and maybe we can find something in the middle. Well, it's sort of one of the laws of nature when you have two parties, and one of which won't compromise and the other one will, that the one that compromises loses.
Right. Yeah.
And so we've been losing and losing and losing. Not necessarily every election, but we've been losing our policies. The country has moved to the right. Bernie Sanders doesn't compromise.
Right.
He says he's put a stake in the ground, and he has said, enough. We're going to take back this country the way America should be, and I really appreciate that. I really very much appreciate that. Could I know I'm going on and on.
No, I want you to go on because I want to hear if he can win.
Okay, well, we'll get around to that. Bernie embodies progressive values. Progressives stand for American values, and those values are opportunities for all of us, liberty and justice for all of us, not just some of us, that property and money and color and zip code doesn't define what our opportunities are. These are American values, and these are the values that polls, incidentally, show that all Americans, independents, Republicans, etc., go along with. What the problem has been is that Americans haven't believed that Democrats will live up to those values.
Right, exactly.
And here comes Bernie along, and he's saying, these are all those values, and I will die before I won't live up to them. So Bernie has put a stake in the ground. Now, can he win an election? Way, way, way too early to ask that question. so many things can happen between now and even Netroots Nation in July, or the Democratic conventions or the Republican convention. It's too early to ask that question.
Okay, I tell you what, Patrick, and then I'm going to go to the phones. But before I get to John on the phone, I want folks call in 713-526-5738, 713-526-5738. I have some thoughts here. Okay, I think. Sure. I first of all, I think any of the Democratic candidates that are currently running, all four of them, I think they have the policies necessary to win. I won't say which ones, but I think two of them have the charisma to win. Okay. Now that said, I don't know that the body of the Democratic Party wants anyone but one to win, and that is where I think the grassroots movement is so important, and where our grassroots movement has been very lacking. Because what I do believe is that if you would hear a lot of messages, and I do a lot of blogging, I do a lot of radio here and on the internet and elsewhere, where you hear people complain. It's not that they don't like the democratic values, but as you said before, they don't see Democrats who seem to stand up for what they believe and stand up for who they claim they're standing up for. But one thing people do respect, irrespective of policy, a whole lot of times is strength. Strength and conviction. And that is something that they're lacking. So my next question, that's kind of post-amble on to this, is, do you think the grassroots of the Democratic Party can actually change what we call the base of the Democratic Party into supporting a real progressive type candidate?
Good question. Of course, that's the major question, and I thought a lot about that. And let's sort of stop dancing around the real topic here. Is that we're really asking, can the base of the Democratic Party get behind Hillary if she actually does get the nomination? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Right. I mean.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about that for a second. The trick is with Hillary knows that the Democratic wing of the Democratic Party, that's us progressives, are going to vote for her in the general election. And we know that we're going to vote for her in the general election. You know, that a Republican taking over the White House and holding the Senate at the same time is political suicide. It means America is gone as we know it, at least for my lifetime.
The manifestation of the Powell letter realized.
Yeah. Oh, far, far worse.
You're right.
Now, the question is, will we work for her and give her our money? She can't win a national election without us. We know that. But we can't afford to lose the White House, and if she's the nominee, we can't win with her. So we have to engage in, and we are now engaging in it, a multi-level negotiation to push her as far to the left as possible without undermining her in the general by allowing the GOP to paint her as an extreme leftist. And let me give you a quote from Mr. Trippi. We all remember Mr. Trippi?
Absolutely. We know who Mr. Trippi is. Okay,
all right. The feeling, I'm quoting him, the feeling is we, being progressives, don't have the luxury to get everything we want, to get that perfect purity. That's about right. Now, I'll take almost perfect purity in Hillary Clinton. I'll take almost perfect purity in Bernie Sanders. I'll take almost perfect purity in any progressive Democrat that can win the White House.
Right.
But that's what we're talking about. How far left can we move Hillary Clinton?
Right.
And Ronald Brownstein, I think, laid it out really nicely in the National Journal, and I recommend everybody to go read his piece in that.
What in synopsis? What did he say?
In synopsis, what he said was that Clinton's campaign has said flatly it wants it is determined to avoid a bidding war for the support of the party's energized liberal base, but there's going to be a bidding war for the party's energized liberal base. And the question is, how far can she bid to the left and not lose the whole game.
Now, Patrick, I'm going to have to, after Shannon takes a call, I'm going to have to run to traffic. But before that, I want to ask you a quick question.
Sure.
Is Elizabeth Warren out absolutely for sure?
Elizabeth Warren has said it, and she said it to me.
Uh-huh.
She doesn't want to run for president at all. She has no interest in that her best and most powerful position would be chairman of the Senate Banking and Finance Committee.
So she definitely doesn't want it, and she doesn't want to be pulled into the position because she's going to be there. And believe me, I'm going to try to talk to her when she's there.
Well, I can't speak for her. I can only tell you what I have heard her say publicly and what she has said to me in a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, however, there's something very important in what she just said.
Right.
If
Patrick, hold that thought.
of-
Patrick, hold that thought because
Sure.
Shannon has to do traffic, and then I'll come right back to you.
Got it.
Why, thank you, Egberto. All right, on the North Loop, clockwise at the North Freeway, a collision involving two vehicles is affecting the left shoulder and congesting that already very congested loop. Traffic is backed up from the North Freeway to Fornance. And on the North Freeway, outbound at the HOV at the Beltway 8, there's a wreck involving two vehicles, and that's blocking that HOV lane. So if you're out there, do not get on there. All right, major accident reported at the South Loop and Frontage Road at Scott. So don't take that exit. Keep going. And on the Gulf Freeway inbound before Scarsdale, a stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder and entrance ramp and has affected traffic mildly in that area. And currently it is 91 degrees and partly cloudy skies. It feels like 95 out there and definitely feels like summer is here. High today of 90 and low of 71. Tomorrow it will be sunny with a few clouds. No rain in the forecast. Back to you, Egberto, in the studio.
Well, Shannon, thank you. And folks, Shannon is playing these phones massively. I'm coming to the phones in about 2 minutes, but our system is down and she's pasting things on the walls and getting things done. Shannon is just great. Anyhow, Patrick, tell me, let's finish that real quickly.
I didn't answer your question.
Yes.
And I will. Can Bernie Sanders win the election? Well, there's some interesting signs out there. If you'll notice, the Gallup poll has shown that conservative base is shrinking.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Take a look at that.
Big
That's
time.
kind of interesting.
They're tied for the first time since the poll started.
That's
they started
right.
taking a poll.
Americans have edged up as pro-choice for the first time in 7 years. Okay. Americans continue to shift left on key moral issues. Okay. And Forbes magazine put out a major story saying that historically, if you want a better economy, vote for a Democrat.
But
So
that's been out for a long time.
Well, we've all known that, but now it's really getting out there, which means that that Bernie Sanders and what he stands for does have a chance, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, look, I'm glad to hear
I'm
that.
not saying he's going to win. I'm saying he has a chance.
Now, you were beforehand. You were saying something about Elizabeth Warren. I think you were going to finish one thing that you said.
Elizabeth Warren said that I'm paraphrasing here. I will say it. If you're a supporter of Elizabeth Warren, you want her to be in the most powerful position that she can be in, and that's chairwoman of the Senate Finance and Banking Committee, which means we have got to elect 6 more Democrats to
Absolutely. Got it.
Okay.
Now let's go to the phones. John, sorry for keeping you holding that long, but we had to get through these pieces. Come on in, John.
Yeah, good afternoon, Egberto. Good afternoon, Patrick.
Good afternoon. Is it John?
Yes, it's John.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the controversy of Netroots this year because it's not really getting publicized on Daily Kos because of Marcos Militsa's, basically he's boycotting it. And I just want to know how much that's affecting the outcome, how many people, are people still signing up for it? And it's definitely affected how much play it's getting on the net. So if you want to comment on that. And also, I want to talk 2 things about Bernie Sanders. I'm a huge Bernie Sanders supporter. But to say that he absolutely doesn't compromise, I think is a little bit of a misnomer, because he has compromised. He's compromised on the ACA. He wanted single payer. Obama had to convince him that it would be helping people, who had pre-existing conditions. He went and went through all the whole slew of things that it helped people on. And so I think he actually is able to compromise to some degree. Mostly, yes, he's great, and he has his ideological views, and I agree with those views. But another thing is about talking about will the base accept Hillary? The base has accepted Hillary since day one of polling. She's always been, really out in front with people who consider themselves liberal and very liberal, far ahead of anybody, far ahead of Warren at her polling peak, far ahead of Sanders in his polling peak.
Okay.
So, y'all want to comment from there?
Thank you very much, John. Let's let Patrick answer that one, please.
Well, let's start with the first one, and thank you, John. I'm glad you brought all these things up. There is no controversy with Daley Kos and Marcos. Originally, Marcos was not happy that we were going to go to Phoenix because he did say that he wanted to boycott it, but that's old news. We're back friends, and he always said that I'm not going to attend this Netroots Nation, but I'm going to be back there from now on afterwards, and that's where it is now. So he's not coming personally, but other people are coming. It hasn't really affected us at all. In fact, I think we're actually running a little ahead on sponsorships now. And yeah, there's one hotel is already sold out. So if you're going, you better get in, and you want to be in one of the major hotels, you better do it quickly, because we are filling up fast. But the controversy was long gone. It only lasted a few days, and we're all, believe me, we're all friends. We've all known each other for 10 years. Secondly, Sanders compromised. He won't compromise on values. On tactical things here and there within the party in order to get something done, sure. I mean, that's how the Senate works, and he's a U.S. Senator, and he wants to see things get done, unlike the Republicans. But when it comes to values, Bernie doesn't compromise, at least not that I've ever seen him. And lastly, Hillary accepted by the base. Yes, Hillary has been accepted by the base, absolutely. But remember I said the question isn't whether the base will vote for her. The question is, how enthusiastic is the Democratic wing of the Democratic Party, progressives, going to come out and donate to her and volunteer for her? You know, you could vote for Hillary and decide you're not going to work for her. You're going to go work for somebody running for your state Senate instead. And she's well aware of that. So, yeah, the base has accepted her. The question is how enthusiastic are they going to be behind her campaign?
Excellent. I tell you what, put John on hold for me, and let's go to Rick. Is it Rich? Rick? Come on,
Hi.
Rich.
Hello?
Hi there.
Yes, you're here, sir.
Okay. Sorry, I get kind of poor reception out where I live.
No problem.
Well, how's it going, my friend?
Everything is going perfectly, sir. Everything is going perfectly. You have a good old question for Patrick here?
Well, it's a little bit of more of a statement.
Okay.
Really.
It better be louder because we can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. Like I said, I get poor reception. Is this a little bit better?
Yes, that's better.
Okay. So it's more of a comment about what you had said previously regarding does America doesn't think that the Democrats will live up to the values and the, I guess, policies that we want to see in office. But one thing that I've actually kind of noticed is it's not that Americans don't believe that Democrats will live up to it. It's more that the conservatives and the Republicans like to really underhand the Democrats and distract Americans on social issues. Like perfect examples are the whole Obama's going to take our guns, and really, I could never find any point in time where Obama had made any indication or any statement that he was going to take away our guns or regulate gun control at all. And now with the whole Hillary Clinton running, everybody's distracted on Benghazi. And the Republicans are just trying to find any way to distract American voters because they're afraid of losing the next election and having more and more of their policies revoked and seeing more of a liberal and progressive agenda really in the White House.
Rich, I want to address something that you said before I put Patrick on here, and that is when you speak about all these side issues that come across, the divide and conquer type issues. One of the problems I've always had with the Democratic Party, with progressives and the Democratic Party in general, first of all, is the term progressive, right? Egberto is a liberal. I am a liberal, okay? All the good things that happened in this country happened because liberals were there, whether they were Democratic liberals, Republican liberals, or whomever. It so happened that the liberals are concentrated now in the Democratic Party. I have not seen many other than folks out there, a few in the blogosphere, come out full-throatedly to really bang on the evils that have occurred, on the evils that have occurred under the Republican administrations, under the Republican values, under these other issues. They just don't come out with the passion that needs to be done, so that people believe that these things are actually happening to them. There's a whole lot that we could go into on that. But go ahead, Patrick, you can come in on that.
Well, first of all, the polls haven't shown that Democrats don't live up to their values. It's shown that the American public doesn't believe that they're effective in enforcing or passing legislation that correspond with their values. There's a difference there, and again, it comes down to the Democratic Party has not been as effective in legislation and also in ruling too, and in governing, as they claim that as they try to convince people they can be. A good example is the dysfunction in the Senate when the Democrats held the Senate. The Speaker, the head of the Senate, rather, allowed the Republicans to tie up the Senate. He could have changed the rules. The Democrats could have changed the rules and moved the filibuster to 55, but they just sat there and let it go on year after year, and as a result, we didn't get the liberal judges at the federal level that we should have gotten. We didn't get the legislation we should have gotten, etc. So it's the Democrats have not been forceful in implementing their policies. Secondly, on social issues, there wasn't really a question there. However, I noticed that there's a number of polls that are beginning to show that social issues are becoming more important and that Americans are shifting to the left on moral issues. So all the screaming and yelling that the Republicans are doing about their issues, having a baby outside of moral, gay marriage equality, divorces, etc., is actually maybe hurting them. The one exception of there, well, actually not anymore. It used to be abortion, but not anymore. Americans have shifting towards a pro-choice lever there. So I don't think they distract the American people as much as they stoke their base, and they raise money on it. Every time you see Rick Santorum or Huckabee come out with one of these outrageous statements that marriage equality caused the floods in Houston or whatever the latest outrageous statement is, they don't believe that. They're raising money.
Right. Now, the interesting thing about it, Patrick, and I'm going to be going to Terry next, the interesting thing about it is that I think the reason sometimes even in the Senate the Democratic Party looks dysfunctional is that there are two Democratic parties. There is a corporatist Democratic Party, and then there's the grassroots. Yeah, so I need to run to traffic. So I'm going to come back to this topic, and then Terry, go ahead with the traffic.
Why, thank you, Egberto. Once again, on the Gulf Freeway inbound at Airport Boulevard, a heavy truck accident is affecting two frontage lanes, and it's getting stickier and stickier out there, but not nearly as bad as it looks on the loop. There's no major incidents at this time, but very slow from in the Galleria area all the way up. Not quite as bad, but very slow still, all the way up to the North Freeway. And as well, on the Southwest Freeway inbound at Chimney Rock, a collision between two vehicles is affecting two frontage lanes there. And of course, the Southwest Freeway is always a miserable situation at this time of day. But on the North Freeway outbound on the HOV, Beltway 8, a wrecked vehicle is involving two vehicles is blocking that HOV lane. And that's all there is to report about at this time right out there in our fair city. But back to you, Egberto.
Thank you very much. Now, like I was saying before, Patrick, I think we have a wing of the Democratic Party that is actually beholden to others, and as such, they're actually more in line a lot of times with not the right wing crazy part of the Republican Party, but the corporatist side as well. And you take a look at what's going on, let's say, with the TPP. I don't know what your particular stance is on the TPP, but I can tell you that, in fact, I'll be curious before I go to Terry, what's your stance on the TPP?
It will be the worst economic disaster to be visited upon the United States in 50 years.
Wow. So I don't know that I like to have guests on air that just kind of thinks the way I think as well. I mean,
I obviously haven't read it because it's secret. But the fact that it's secret, it's being held secret with greater security than we hold some of our major weapon secrets, our weapon system secret, tells you something. It tells you that the administration knows that once the American public find out what's in that treaty, we will do everything except throw the president out a window of the White House.
Now,
we'll be so angry.
I wrote a blog post asking, why is a president who, in as much as isn't as progressive as we all, well, I always knew he wasn't some super progressive. I was very concerned during the election, as I've written before. But what is in it for him? I mean, it seems to me that could possibly be a legacy buster. So what is in it for him?
I can't figure that one out either. And it is a legacy buster, too.
I've been asking that question over and over again. I'm too dumb to answer it, Patrick. Why don't you help me?
I've even sent that question to the White House. There is a facility on the White House's website that if you get enough people who demand action on something, they'll do it. Maybe we should all inundate the White House's website with that, because I can't see what's in it for him unless he really, really believes that. And the only reason he could really, really believe that is because he's only listening to people who have a stake in the game.
In the bubble. I think...
In the bubble, but,
yes.
There's so much public criticism of it. I just can't... In fact, he's recognized the public criticism, and he's angrily pushed back, so he knows that we don't want it.
And that is a... I hope at Netroots there's going to be some big stuff going on that. But let's bring Terry into the discussion. Terry, you are hot, my friend.
Hello, Egberto. How are you?
All right. How are you doing, sir?
Always good. Listen, a couple quick comments. Number one, you mentioned that there is a corporatist wing.
Terry, we can hardly hear you.
Terry, could you speak up a little bit? Thank you.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there's a corporatist wing and a grassroots wing of every party. There's only two majors. That's not going to go away anytime soon. And, of course, obviously, you can thank the odious Supreme Court decision for that.
Right.
Secondly, the problem with the Democratic Party, small d and big D, is not that, well, it is ineffectual for a number of reasons. But in my opinion, that's because it spends 50 to 75% of its time reacting to the latest Republican demand. It doesn't foster an agenda of its own. It's reactionary to far-right lunatic pressure. Lastly, in terms of dispelling some of the things that go on, I'll take just the Benghazi farce as a small example. Anyone who's read anything about that knows that Chris Stevens died of smoke inhalation. He died of smoke inhalation because when he was told to leave, his response was, "No, the Syrians will protect me." He was wrong. He died for it. Instead of standing up before any Republican lunatic who says, we're going to look into why Benghazi failed. No one has said, I'll tell you why it failed. The ambassador, when he was told to leave, wouldn't leave. He died of smoke inhalation. That's it. We're not going to talk about it anymore.
Well, you see, in our politically correct country, if you just go out and say that, they'll say you are insensitive towards his family.
That's my astrological sign. I'm okay with that.
But comments, Patrick?
Well, I'm not quite sure what the comment on there.
I think what he's saying is that the court that we are that both parties are corporatists, and that we can't get, none of that is going to change anytime soon. And I think by inference, one could easily say that is why it is so important to have real grassroots movements. And that is, in a lot of ways, that is something that's very hard to come by. I tell you something, TPP. I work with websites and pages. I write for these websites and pages where I can put up a story about Dugard and the hypocrisy of the right, and I'll get a couple 100,000 hits or page views on that particular story. And then I put up a story about the TPP, and I get maybe a few thousand hits. And then I try to make the TPP seems a little more a little bit more exciting to get people involved. Now, whatever the Dugards are going to be doing or does, it has no impact on the lives of the average American citizen. The TPP does. Patrick, how are we going to go into Arizona, get the 3,000 bloggers out there and activate them to really change that model?
I don't think we have to. I think they'll do it themselves. Keep in mind that the participants in Netroots Nation Convention are the activists of the progressive movement in the United States, so they'll do it themselves. They did it in Detroit, where
Detroit was great. Yes,
Detroit was great. Mark Ruffalo got up on our stage and said, "Look, we're having a demonstration out there to stop this ripping off of water from poor people. Could you join us?" And 200 people suddenly became 2,000. So we'll do that. Back to your guest, your caller's point.
Yes.
It is absolutely true that both parties have now broken down into a grassroots populist segment and a corporatist segment. And that's dangerous, but it also tells you something. It tells you that maybe our enemy isn't really necessarily the populist, the GOP wackos. Maybe our enemy is actually the corporations, because they've been able to capture the part of the Republican Party, and they've been able to capture part of our party. The enemy, maybe, is money in politics.
Let me tell you something, Patrick. CoffeePartyUSA.com. That is one of the functions that we have, and it's amazing that you kind of segued right into that. Money in politics, but I don't know how you feel about the other one, but it's very important. Corporate personhood. A lot of folks don't understand that we tackle that problem with Move to Amend, MoveToAmend.com. Corporate personhood is another serious problem in this country, because if corporations have inalienable rights, like they fall under the Bill of Rights, what does it mean? They have votes.
First of all, corporations are made-up entities chartered by the state.
Yes.
Secondly, when you form a corporation, and I have formed a corporation, I happen to be in one right now, you make a deal. And the deal you make is that the state will insulate you from personal liability for the mistakes of the corporation.
Right.
But you have to obey all of the laws of the state in return. And what corporations are trying to do is say, oh, no, we get the insulation, but we don't obey the laws. Corporate personhood is total BS, and it is very dangerous. And I'll say, if we can't get rid of it, then I would like to reinstitute the draft and start with the boards of directors of every single major corporation in the United States.
I am glad to hear you say that. Are you guys going to be talking any, I shouldn't say you guys, are we guys going to be talking any corporate personhood issues in any of the what do you call those, the breakouts?
We have panels, we have workshops, we have trainings, and there are so many of them. There's 3 days worth of them.
Right.
That what my answer to that is: go to the website netrootsnation.org and click on the event schedule and start scrolling through all of the panels, and maybe you'll see one. You probably will see one like that. The coffee party will be there, I'm sure.
Right. Absolutely. Now, let's go to line. Actually, there's a call coming in on line 3 right now that probably wants to get in. Now, there was one other question that I have to ask you about Netroots. You said right now that you're currently a little bit above where you were last year at this time. Is this
financial support. We live on our sponsors, people buying booze and things like that. I think we're about even, maybe a little bit behind on our registrations.
Okay.
But we've already sold out one hotel, and another hotel is going to be gone pretty soon. So there's be no shortage of progressives here.
Well, that's good. And Elizabeth Warren will be there. I can tell you, last year she brought down the house when she gave the speech. So I think another call is on. Let's go ahead and bring in line number 3. Madeline.
Yes. Hi, Egberto. How are you?
How you doing, Madeline?
I am doing well. You're talking about corporate personhood, which, is a subject close to my heart.
Yes, it is. It sure is.
Corporations in politics. And it's not just that they're in politics and they're in both parties. They also have control of our press. There was an editorial in this morning's paper that really disturbed me, and it was in the Chronicle, and it was a report for both, quote, the Republican side and the conservative side and the liberal side on how the state legislature had done.
Right.
I don't know if you saw those.
I didn't.
The conservative side was written by the head of the Texas Public Policy Foundation.
Oh, my God.
You know about them?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I've spoken out about ALEC for the past year and a half at several different occasions. I've done lectures on ALEC, and the Texas Public Policy Foundation is a corporate arm of ALEC.
Yes, it is.
It is funded by corporations.
Madeline, I only have like 20 seconds left that I can keep you on, so tell me that little thing. I'm running a little close on time.
Okay, well, I'll just be quick. It's funded by ALEC. It's run by ALEC. And when the Texas Public Policy Foundation says that the legislature did a great job, it's because the legislature has done things like saying that corporations can frack in anybody's neighborhood in Denton. They can take water from areas and divert it towards areas that need it for corporate use. Basically, it's saying that the legislature did everything the corporation wanted them to do.
Madeline, thank you. I mean, keep call in a little earlier the next time, please, because
I just will drive it across town and heard you about 2 minutes ago.
Great, thank you very much. Look, Patrick, it has been a pleasure having you on air. I guess I'll see you in Arizona next month. Please do come back and tell us how it all went by. Okay.
I'll be happy to, since I am a Texan by birth. I love to be on your show.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Patrick. You have a wonderful day. And folks, this has been one more edition of Politics Done Right. Thank you very much for having your ear, and we will be out right now.
Thank you very much for listening to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. You can personally reach me by sending an email to egberto@politicsdoneright.com. Remember, Egberto is spelled E-G-B-E-R-T-O. Change starts with you. 90.1 KPFT gives you information not tainted by corporate interest. Please visit kpft.org and contribute. Let's ensure continued access to real information and news remain available to all. Again, thank you very much for listening to Politics Done Right.